1, 2, 3, action! Today I've got something special for you, all of you viewers. Today I've got something you were not expecting. But what is it that I have in store for you? Well, we have none other than the legendary master Zerg player himself, one of the best Zerg players from the pro scene, Larva. He's playing not Zerg, but Terran. I bet you didn't see that one coming. And his opponent, of course, is Hamburgersasu here in the top right corner, facing off against none other than, as I've already mentioned, the one and only real Larva. I know this is Larva because I saw one or two of the matches in this series that I'm now going to cast on their live streams. So what's Larva up to? He starts off with a barrack there on his choke. I really am curious to see what he's got up his sleeve, because this guy is not the fastest player. I doubt he's got a lot of experience. I honestly think he's got very little experience. So let's see how his pro career experience spanning over a decade and how his expertise, honestly, because he's, as I've said already, he's actually one of the best Zerg players of all time. How does that translate to fastest map? Can he use all that knowledge, experience, that insane micro ability, that super high APM, because he's probably going to keep hovering in the 350 to 450 APM, because that's the kind of guy he is. What can he bring to the map? What can he bring to the game? And can Hamburgersasu put up a fight, or will Hamburgersasu's fastest map experience and expertise, his specialism, so to speak? Yeah, specialism, I guess that's the right word. Will that be enough to net him a win against Larva? Do you hear the sound? It's a little bit silent, isn't it? Maybe I gotta ramp up the sound a little bit because I'm not really hearing much. Sound. Let's put it on that one. Alright, yeah. So Larva starts off with the bunker rush because he went with that barrack in his choke, but he's only doing it with a single barracks because he's already making a factory back at home. But Hamburgersasu doesn't seem to be having much trouble holding this off because the Marines there are already going down there in the choke. The bunker gets discontinued, and now Hamburg is actually on the hunt for a counterattack, which he can do because the factory is not finished up. There's one Marine which is now running away back to safety, and Hamburgersasu is entering the base. He didn't manage to kill that SCV, he was just a little bit too late, so the Vulture is going to be coming out very soon. But Larva is now forced to defend with his SCVs. He does manage to snipe one of those, almost managed to snipe the other as well. More Zergs are coming in because Hamburgersasu recognizes that this is his chance to go for a punish on that very, very risky one barrack build. The Vulture is now out though, so Vulture might go up and coming in. But Larva is getting slowed down significantly by those Zerglings. Had to pull off his SCVs, lost a couple of SCVs there as well, but in the end he comes out with some very, very small minor wounds. Finally manages to catch that pesky Zergling there in the corner. And now the hunt is on. He's got that one factory finished up. He's got a starport already on the way. So he's planning on flying them Vultures into Hamburgersasu's base. He might try a run by. He goes for the run by, but he sees that there's Zerglings there as well. And a single Sunken might be able to take down both those Vultures before they can get in. So he decides against it. Hamburgersasu has pulled back his Overlord, so he didn't see that starport. So that starport, I am sure, will catch him by surprise. Or maybe not, because there's already Hydralisks out on the map. Is he going for the counterattack here? Vultures manage to sneak in. None of the Vultures go down, but they are on low HP. Luckily, there are Hydralisks there for Hamburgersasu, so he's going to fight against those Vultures. Vultures are being microed quite well, but they're not really finding much footing here because they're being zoned away from the drones, which are of course the target that Larva wanted to attack. But Larva now, though, does get himself information that Hydralisks are there, that there's no hot lair yet. So actually, that little run by is actually working out in favor of Larva. Sends a couple of SCVs to the front here, made a bunker there as well, putting Marines inside the bunker. Hydralisks will have not much effect here. Wait, There's still one vulture, manages to sneak in, goes for the probes. Hamburgersasu's got to pull back. I think one probe there goes down. Is he going to get another one? Nope, he doesn't get a second one. But now Hamburgersasu is going to try to go for the frontal attack here. Larva preemptively pulled a lot of SCVs to the front there, but there's also already a tank up and running. The siege mode though is not yet finished up, but he's using his knowledge of range to attack over the hill onto those hydralisks, and also using those SCVs to repair the bunker, but the bunker sadly enough goes down. Now he's forced to go for an even harder micro battle here. Hamburgersasu moves himself in, but he gets blocked by the SCVs, and the tank of course outranges those hydralisks, so he can shoot just fine from distance. More Marines there in the bunker in the back. He's doing a really insane job here with those SCVs, keeping those hydralisks out and more or less preventing this attack from Hamburgersasu to get any results. Instead, it becomes a huge waste of minerals for Hamburgersasu. Larva, in the meantime, has got a science facility now on the way, still on a single factory, single starport. He's pretty much just playing this like a normal map. But it is, at the moment, somewhat working out. And that's also because Terran versus Zerg and Zerg versus Terran on the fastest map is very much like the regular maps in terms of what you do, which strategies you go for, and yeah, how it all works out. Unlike Protoss versus Terran, which is very distinctively different on fastest map. Honestly, it is the most distinctively different matchup. Also Protoss versus Zerg, that's also very distinctively different. But Terran versus Zerg is very much almost, not entirely, but almost the same. So yeah, that double command center there is really working miracles there for Larva, but Larva still confined to the safety of his base. He's going for a radiate. He's got a vessel on the way. I assume he's going to try to kill those drones that Hamburgersasu has. Hamburgersasu is now trying to ramp up, but he's only just now gotten his third hatchery up. Or you could call it his fourth hatchery, but it's a third hatchery, second macro hatchery. This is mostly just a choke hatchery that he's willing to sacrifice. So Larva now starts to push, building a bunker there behind those tanks just to protect them from Zerglings or whatever. Having a little nice something to micro backwards too. Tanks moving up, inching closer, slowly and slowly. There's a sunken there in the back, about to be finishing up. But Hamburgersasu does not have more sunkens on the way there. So this is going to be a very good opportunity here for Larva to move in. But there's also, of course, the danger of the surround that Hamburgersasu can pull off here. There's no medics in the mix, so those Marines will go down very quick. More hydralisks are spawning here for Hamburgersasu, but he's honestly very small. He is setting himself up for the surround, and those tanks are at the moment not yet staged up. Two more tanks are there in the back, and I think Hamburgersasu is going to go in. Well, I wanted to say he could go in when the tanks were sieging up, but he decided not to. He wants to buy himself a little bit more time, stack up a little bit more of those hydralisks. Larva decides against going in. He doesn't feel safe enough, and I honestly think that's a good choice. Because the surround could have been really deadly, and he would need to set up his tanks really well in order to deal real damage there. I think he's just going to bank on those vessels killing drones. Whether Hamburgersasu is going to allow that, I don't know. But Larva is becoming really big, one, because he's already hit 46 of those SCVs, and he's now planning on setting himself up for the offense. He's using the hill here. Well, not using the hill, but he's using the fact that tanks can shoot over the hill up until about this far to keep Hamburgersasu zoned and confined to his base. Hamburgersasu is taking this opportunity to add a lot of hatcheries to his economy so he can start more production, get more drones. Lairs on the way as well, still only on a single gas, but he is getting bigger. Albeit only slightly bigger and not that much bigger than a couple minutes ago, but it's still some progress forward. So yeah, Larva is throwing down a huge amount of turrets here to defend against Mutalisks. Mutalisks are not coming. Overlord drop is also not coming. I think Larva is expecting Hamburgersasu to do what Larva would do. It is one of those moments where you say, what will Larva do? Well, not what Hamburgersasu is doing. Hamburgersasu is going for something else entirely. He wants to get that surround off on Larva. If Larva makes a single mistake, the surround will work. Still only on a single factory, 4 barracks, 5 barracks now. He's got some upgrades there on the way as well. He's getting the surround off actually. He's managing to surround Larva. Larva managed to Wait, the Radiate comes in. Radiate comes out on the drones. He goes for the Eraser move as well. Drones go down, and he kills the remainder of the drones there on the gas as well. At least he is in the process of doing it. That was a great distraction tactic there from Larva. That pretty much is the nail in the coffin for Hamburgersasu, because there's not much he can do now. His economy is now too small. Larva is too big. Although his base is a mess, and he actually has less production facilities than you would assume given the size of his base. It looks bigger because it's a mess. If it were all built very compact, it would look a lot smaller. But nonetheless, he's got the edge. He's got the edge over Hamburgersasu. But Hamburgersasu, did he make Lurker Aspect? I don't know. I didn't see it. All I do know is that he's only got a couple of drones on the way and not much else. He does have his highlights spread out really nicely though. So he is in the process of rebuilding. He pretty much hit the same drone count that he was on prior, but he's still somewhat small. Larva though, 55 SCVs, discontinued SCV production, and is very slowly adding on more gas, more armories there on the side for upgrades, more turrets being thrown on everywhere pretty much. This is what you get when you put a pro player who's never played fastest into a fastest map situation. So he goes in with the Marines stimming in, and the Marines go down to the... No, the Marines get out on top because they have the medics there to support them, and they also have the 0-1 upgrade, which the Hydralists lack. The Hydralist count also too small, and the medics are pretty much just keeping those Marines alive very, very well. Vessels there hanging in the back, preparing themselves for another kill on those drones. The Radiate would put a nail in the coffin, which I've already said twice or maybe thrice. Larva is not really planning on setting a lot more units in there. Just very slowly balling up, not trying to waste units, just trying to fight with what he has. This is really looking like a normal map game, but on fastest map. So yeah, using the tanks there on the hill to gain himself some advantage, sending on more Marines, but very slowly getting himself an advantage. He isn't very big. As I've said, not as big as he appears. Oh, he is quite a big man. So yeah, Hamburgersasu still has the chance to turn this around, but he has to get a lot of Hydralists very quick and possibly some Lurkers into the mix as well. But then there's still the challenge of actually getting into Larva's base. An Overlord drop is also not an option. He does have Carapace upgrade on the way. Queen is now on the way as well. How is this going to pan out for Hamburgersasu? Can he still come back, or is this the end? He tries to go in, but there's too many Marines being spread out with medic support behind them. Now Radiate's coming down on the Hydralist. Now Radiate also comes down on the drones, and that means the drones are going to go... No, he manages to burrow the drones, but another Radiate. He unburrows by accident. Actually, I think about 10 of those drones went down, but he does wind up losing the fight. Larva comes out on top in game number 1 with the Marine, Vessel, and Tank play. And he ends up on the 1337 mineral count. So he is actually certified lead. Certified lead. So interesting game from Larva. Not what I was expecting from him. But yeah, he's pretty much just using his normal map knowledge and plays this like a normal map game on the fastest map, and it kind of works, but also kind of works because Hamburgersasu went for somewhat of a cheesy move, trying to punish Larva for making an early game mistake, but Larva then capitalizes on that really well, using the tank range that outranges Hydralisk range to kill a lot of Hydralisk with the SCV block. There was some really impressive stuff that I haven't actually ever seen done on a fastest map, maybe because the situation actually never occurs, except for this game in particular, but really well played. And now I think it's time for game number 2, so let's head over to game number 2 and see what we have in store. Now for game number 2, we have Larva on the Zerg, and Hamburgersasu, back to his roots, he's gonna play the Protoss. Now, will Larva be capable of beating Hamburgersasu with Zerg against Protoss on fastest map? Keeping in mind that Protoss is the favorable race to win in this matchup. But also keep in mind, Larva, as I've already said in the last game, is definitely within the top 5 of best Zerg players of all time. He's achieved a lot of things very consistently as well, beaten pretty much the best of the best, including Flash a couple of times. Although not in tournaments, mostly online, he's beaten Flash a couple of times. Although sometimes most of the times it winds up in favor of Flash. But the bottom line is, his Zerg is very good. It is top notch. I don't think a lot of players can beat him in a best of series. But keeping in mind, this is fastest map. The rules of Zerg versus Protoss are different. We've in the past even seen Jaedong lose a series against 458 playing Zerg versus Protoss. The rules are very different. And without having experienced and felt what those rules are, seen them up close, experienced them, played against them, and understand them from actually playing fastest map, you will not see all those little peculiar details coming, not even from a mile away. You'll be caught off guard, you'll be surprised, because, as I said, the rules are slightly different. Protoss has a way faster scalar time to scale, or a way shorter time to scale up and get big and be really strong and have a lot of punching power compared to regular maps, where that process is a little bit delayed. You could even say that on normal maps, Zerg has a stronger late game than Protoss. On fastest map, however, that is not entirely the case. I would even argue that it's about equal. Zerg and Protoss have about an equal late game. Maybe even in favor of Protoss, because it is easier for Protoss to turtle it out and go for potential countermeasures or counter moves. Because it's so easy to just spam out a bunch of cannons, and it's so easy to just make a lot of Templars and storm everything that the Zerg has to dead. Of course, there's also Reavers. Mass Reavers is a legitimate strategy on fastest map, where it's not on normal maps. But Larva is displaying at least a good start. He knows that he has to choke, and he's going for a pretty good hatchery start here as well. Maybe someone taught him, maybe he picked up a couple of cues from watching fastest from time to time. But I've never seen him play fastest. So this is, I think, just picked up a couple of things here and there, and he's trying to use them in his play. So yeah, he starts to scout. He already scouted the Hamburgersasu's base. Hamburgersasu here on the top middle went for the +1 nexus into the 3 gateways, which is more or less the standard opening in Protoss vs Zerg within the Korean scene. Larva this time around is really playing at his real APM, because he is more used to Zerg than he is to Terran. I don't even think Terran is his second best race, but his worst race out of the 3. And his Zerg, of course, is by a mile the best. So yeah, he pulls back to his choke, starts making more creep colonies. Hamburgersasu pulling a probe here into the front because he wants to start a proxy for those robotics, and a couple of cannons to keep Larva boxed in as well. Larva very wisely makes an evolution chamber to only give access to the single sunken in the front, making it harder for Hamburgersasu to get through. But I don't think Hamburgersasu is planning to use these zealots to break in. Mining from 3 simulators soon, from 2 at the moment, 3 in the near future. Cybercore has finished and waiting for the gas to make another robo. He already started one. Cannons are coming down soon as well, because he's got to protect this. Larva now adding 3 gazes at the same time. He already has 2 hatcheries finished up. Of course, 1 there in the front, which I don't count. And he's got number 3 here, right next to his main. He's trying to fish for an opening to try and stop this from happening, but Hamburgersasu says no. He even canceled the Evo chamber because he realized that it no longer serves the purpose that he intended it to have. Hamburgersasu could honestly go in here and probably kill those Sunkens and a couple of Zerglings there as well, and put some real pressure there on Larva. Larva is not preparing himself that well for that possibility, but Sunken here in the back is finishing up. And I think he's going to add on a couple more Sunkens here in the front. Of course, spacing them out just a tiny bit so that the Reaver damage can only hit 1 Sunken at a time instead of hitting 2 or 3 at the same time, if targeted well. Robotics number 2 finishes. Robotic number 3 is still on the way. Support bay, of course, being warped in here in the base, and gateway. No, it's a Stargate. Stargate for Corsairs also being warped in, and there's the Citadel of the Dune. It looks like he's going for a mass Zealot Reaver push here in the front, possibly also shuttling 4 Zealots into the enemy base just to keep Larva on his toes, keep him busy with fighting and defending. He's got 2 dens finished up. He's going for both speed and range. He's got level 1 attack for Hydralisk on the way as well. It's called a Needle Spine upgrade. Missile attacks. I'm completely wrong. The attack the Hydralisk do is actually called Needle Spines. They fire Needle Spines. It's a burst type attack. So yeah, the 2 shuttles have been loaded up with 4 zealots, and now Larva is feeling the pressure because he's going to have to fight against 8 zealots with those zerglings, and those zerglings are not going to be strong enough. But Hydralisks have spawned. Actually, one of the zealots has gone down. He pulled a couple of drones there as well to block zealots from having access to those Hydralisks there in the back. More zealots are being flown in. That's another 6 zealots being picked up, flown in, and ready to put pressure on Larva. Larva now on his back feet. He's really in a nasty situation here because this is really difficult to defend. That's a lot of zealots there hammering away on his drones, hammering away on his Hydralisks, standing there in the fray. But Larva's doing a pretty good job bugging those zealots out with his drones, but he is still losing drones in the process. But he winds up winning the fight quite handily because he loses a lot less than he could have lost had he not unstacked those drones on top of those zealots. Because those zealots would have honestly won the fight had he not done that. Because there was a lot of zealots, a lot of zealots. He still has the 2 shuttles here. He's got 3 of those Reavers finished up. Corsair now also in the mix, ready to abuse and attack some of those Overlords hanging there close to the hill. I'm not sure if he's going to pick up the Reavers and the Zealots, or if he's going for the frontal push. He's making another wave of Reavers. He's now adding gateways on the middle as well, so he can start whatever he needs to produce. He's got the Rune Range on the way, so he's... Oh wait, that's level 1 upgrade for Corsair, so he wants to kill those Overlords a little bit quicker than he would without. So yeah, 3 more hatcheries being thrown down for a total of 6 here on the top, 1 here on the bottom. He's got both upgrades on the way as well. Well, I wanted to... 1, he doesn't have carapace on the way, but he can make the carapace. So he's got that going. He's on 40 drones, so he's actually scaled up quite nicely. Burrow also being researched, not sure for which purpose. Maybe he's going to try to do some nice little burrow and unburrow tricks. So yeah, Reaver's coming in through the front here. The Larva is not big enough to hold this, only on 74 supply against 143, and that's where we see the Protoss strength and power in action. The ability to build, mine, and mass up all at the same time, whereas Zerg is pretty much forced to pick between one of them at the same time. You cannot build, mass up, and fight at the same time as Zerg. You either have to choose one. And there comes the drop. Drop is coming in from the top side there. Larva missed it. He is winning the fighter in the front. No, he's also losing the fighter in the front, but he's losing the fighter in the back as well. Actually, 2 Reavers went for his drones, and he's losing all of his drones there. And I can hear Larva's screams in agony from all the way from my house in the future. I can hear them coming into the future from the past. Because this is one of the situations where, Christ, there's only 2 drones left. You've just lost everything. You got out awareness, so to speak. He also lost the fighter in the front because 3 of those Reavers are still alive. Both Reavers also made it out of Larva's base. Larva made a couple of drones because he's pretty much broke. He's got 13, 21 minerals, 12 drones in total. A couple more spawning to make it number 13. And I think 2 more are there on the way as well. But Hamburgersasu already continuing the frontal push, and he breaks in. And Larva calls it GG, and Hamburgersasu wins quite convincingly. Because Hamburgersasu knows all the rules of Protoss versus Zerg on fastest map, whereas Larva, I assume, didn't. But Larva played this very well. I'm honestly quite impressed. He did a lot of the right things. It just didn't quite work out. And it's also, of course, because Hamburgersasu has pretty much an unbeatable Protoss versus Zerg on fastest map. I have not seen anyone beat him in this matchup. No one. Not even Brain God. I do have some replays of Brain God playing this matchup against Hamburgersasu, and Hamburgersasu pretty much wins all of them. Actually, he wins all of them. He doesn't lose a single one. Which also kind of is the reason why Hamburgersasu doesn't like to play Protoss versus Zerg. He likes to play in an inferior matchup. He likes to play Zerg versus Protoss, Terran versus Protoss. He does not like being Protoss himself at all. So I kind of admire that in him. Anyway, we've got more games in the chute, so let's go to number 3 and see what we have coming up. Now this is something you guys might like. For game number 3, we have them flipping races. So we have got Larva playing the Protoss. Here, the green Protoss. Last time around, it was green for Hamburgersasu. I think they actually have somewhat the same colors. Hamburgersasu now playing the gray, dark gray Zerg. I think this is still from the time when this color was readily available. Don't think it still is, not sure. Yeah, I'm curious to see how Larva is going to approach this matchup. As we saw last time, he does have some insight on which fastest map builds are common, and it does look like he's going for the mid-build proxy gateway. Now, the question is more so, does Larva have enough information about fastest map? Does he know enough? And also, will his knowledge, experience, and skill from regular maps translate well enough against a player who is a 1 versus 1 specialist on fastest? Hamburgersasu is also a Zerg versus Protoss specialist. He is one of the players who plays this matchup the most out of anyone because he loves playing it. He loves playing this weaker matchup. He loves playing Zerg against Protoss. Because if he wins, it gives him legitimate bragging rights over his opponent. It's like a really good way to BM them. You beat them on a weaker matchup, and then you just say, I beat you on Zerg versus Protoss. Which is, statistically speaking, harder to do than winning Protoss versus Zerg, even if you are somewhat inferiorly skilled. So yeah, he starts off with a really well executed and timed 3 gateway built on the middle, and he finds Hamburgersasu's location. Hamburgersasu did not send his overlord into the middle because that is not tradition within the Korean scene. He pulls his overlord back though to his own choke after he scouted that top spot. And there's the pool there. He's pulling drones to the front. He's saving up 3 larva and 1 larva here in the front for 6 zerglings in total. He's added on that second hatchery, and Larva is finishing up his first zealot, and his second zealot is also on the way. He did not pull any additional probes to this choke though, but he's doing an amazing job at trying and delaying the creep colonies by just standing in the way, making it so that the drones cannot turn into creep colonies, but they do turn into creep colonies, and zerglings are now on the way here as well. He's got 2 more on the. He's got 4 more zerglings on the way. More zerglings are coming in, and this is one of those situations where you kind of wished that Larva pulled over more probes, but his micro is doing miracles here. His micro is definitely doing miracles. Hamburgersasu also microing this very well, but eventually in the end Hamburgersasu comes out on top because he has more knowledge and understanding, and because Larva lacks the understanding that usually you pull over 2 or 3 probes from your minerals to help in taking down those sunkens, because if you have 4 probes, that's 4 damage per probe, 16 damage, which is the same amount of damage that a Zealot does, and also the same amount of HP that a Zealot has. So it's kind of like you actually have 1 extra Zealot there in the mix, which helps taking down those sunkens in the front, but also helps fighting against those zerglings. A good move there from Hamburgersasu, managing to make Larva pull off his probes from the minerals, slows him down quite a bit, but I think those zerglings will eventually go down without really killing a single one of those probes. But that was not the purpose. The purpose was to make Larva pull off his workers. Larva though microing this very well. Hamburgersasu also microing this very well. 1 more pylon coming down here on the middle, so we can start that robotic expo proxy here on the middle. A couple of cannons probably will be made in the front there as well. Hamburgersasu investing in more zerglings. More and more zerglings. He's not going for a big eco build, not going for droning up, not going for gas or more hatcheries. He wants to use the early zergling strength to get an advantage, because he has the information with these 2 overlords that Larva might not have enough units. But Larva is microing this very well, putting all of his units in this tiny little box in between those gateways and in between these 2 cannons and the robo to make it impossible for those zerglings to get a good surround on the zealots, which is essential and crucial in a zealot against a zergling against zealot fight. If it turns into a 1 zealot fighting 2 zerglings fight, then the zealot will always win. If it turns into a 4 zerglings or 5 zerglings hitting a single zealot, then the zealot is going to die rather quick. But he managed to avoid that situation with some great micro, great movement, and great awareness. all of course based on his knowledge and skill. And he goes in for the attack here. He is getting in a tiny little box there that Hamburgersasu is actually having some advantage from. But most of the Sunkens do go down, and the last Sunken is now also going to go down. A couple more Sunkens are being morphed, but they were brought up a little bit too slow, and Hamburgersasu actually risked this situation a little bit too hard. Bit off way more than he can chew. He's trying to salvage it with a couple of Zerglings there, but these Sunkens are all going to go down to those Zealots because the Zealot count is simply way too high. 9 Zealots already there, more Zealots on the way. Zerglings now spawning here for Hamburgersasu back at his main. But I don't think those Zealots will... Those Zerglings, they both start with a Z, and the second letter is also an E. Very annoying to pronounce, Zerglings and Zealots. Yeah, so 2 fights happening here inside of the base of Hamburgersasu. Zealots trying to take down that Sunken. Zealots there chasing Zerglings, and eventually though, the distraction with those Zerglings, pulling those 2 away, actually winds up turning the fight into the favor of Hamburgersasu. But the amount of investment it has cost him to keep making all those Zerglings to fight off all those Zealots is actually not worth it. He is staying alive, but look at the worker count, 12 against 29, and Larva also already has a support bay up and running, and he's got even the shuttle speed on the way. He's added on 2 Nexi. So Larva is actually in a really amazing spot because he also has a Reaver finished, shuttle finished up, and 2 Reavers on the way. And once those Reavers land in Hamburgersasu's base, the game is over because there's no way he will have a Hylisk then finished and the Hylisk finished before those Reavers land. And the Reaver is already on his way. He does see it though. He does see it. So the question now is, can he get a good shot off on those drones, or will it be the end? He tries to find a good spot, manages to unload. Scarab actually does not explode, so he kills nothing. Great bug out there. Tries to get a second shot off, but the second Scarab is also not exploding. Now he tries to get the third one. Will this one go? And that one hits, but it kills only 2. That's some great RNG there, working out in favor of Hamburgersasu, but also, of course, you kind of somewhat can force the Scarab to bug out if you keep stacking your units and again unstack them a tiny bit. Sometimes the Reaver cannot find, the Scarab cannot find the target because it's being walled off by other units. So now the Hylisk have spawned, but the Reavers are on the low ground, using this shuttle to scout ahead a little bit to see what is in what's in there and what's going to come out. So the Reavers are just hammering away on the pool. Shuttles microing back and forth, ready to pick up those Reavers anytime those Hylids come too close and bring them to safety and keep them out of harm's way. This is amazing microing here from Larva. Zealots there on the top side, clearing out those Hylids. Hylids trying to micro backwards, but Hamburgersasu knows this is the end, because he knows he cannot fight against those Reavers there in the back as long as those Zealots are there to protect them and as long as those shuttles are there to pick them up. So he got forced back and he calls GG. Really well played here from Larva. Not entirely as most players play this one. Also, Hamburgersasu tried to be a little bit too greedy, tried to bite off more than he could chew, and immediately felt the consequences of it. And Larva just played it out really well. He did everything he had to do, not entirely as most players play it, but pretty damn close. So he does have some insight, some knowledge that can be applied in fastest map situations. So that's really, really nice to see. So he's lost 2 games, lost 1 game. And that means it's time for game number 4. Because we are all waiting for another matchup between these 2. I think they're going through every single matchup. So let's head in to game number 4, see what's up. Now game number 4 is going to be a real test of Larva's fastest map ability. He's going to test and have to push himself to the limits, because this is actually a very hard matchup to play if you are not a fastest map player. Protoss against Terran, against a player who is a Terran expert on fastest map, and Larva off-raising on the Protoss. Larva last game did show he has some real Protoss chops, some real skills. But whether they can be applied to the specific way this matchup is played, which is so very, very different from what he's used to, that is now the question we are posed with. Sends one probe into the middle, but he goes a little bit too far into the middle because he makes that pylon all the way in the middle, but he's on a corner spawn. Like the distance traveled, like if he was from a mid spot, he would have to travel this distance. It's not as well. All right, I can't. This distance. This is what he have to travel. It's not. It's pretty far, but you can pretty much do it within about 13 seconds. Now, if you are on the corner spot, you're at the bottom. You gotta send that probe all the way into the middle. It takes at least 6 or 7 more seconds to travel all the way to the middle. Which also, of course, means that your first gateway is 7 seconds delayed. The pylon is delayed. The zealots that are gonna be spawning will be delayed by 7 seconds. So I personally am not an advocate of making a mid build when you're a corner spot, or at least make it a little bit closer to here. The timing is not too far off. Plus the distance from this to there, or here, or there, is pretty much the same as the distance from here in the middle to there. So you don't really lose out on traveling time if you make it here. If you make it there, you lose out on spawning time, which is definitely a huge factor when you're playing against really good Terrans on fastest map. Because you will probably fail your mid build and your cannon push because of the extra distance. Plus he's also going for 2 gateways instead of going for 3. Made a very early Forge and a very early Cybernetics. He's made 1 gas. This is looking to be different from the usual. Maybe he's going for quick Dark Templars. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's going for something else. I'm not too sure. Just have to wait and see what he's got up his sleeve. What he's got in store. So yeah, he finds the choke, he finds the Marines, knows where Hamburgersasu is located, and goes in with the Zealot. 2 more Zealots are on the way, 3 Zealots in total against 5 Marines, 6 Marines. That's technically a fight that is in favor of the Protoss, but if microed well, and if these structures are used as a way to bottleneck those Zealots, or just micro around the barracks, and it turns into a fight in favor of the Terran. Of course, also more of those Marines have spawned, so now it's 9 against 3. 2 more Zealots are spawning. He's making cannons here in the entrance to keep Hamburgersasu boxed in. There is the robotics. He's actually going for Reavers. Alright, he's not going for Dark Temple, he's going for Reavers, adding on a second gas. Quite interesting to see how he's going to pull this one off. I'm really curious to see how this is going to work, because this is different from what we're used to. 3 cannons in total there in the front. Hamburgersasu has been boxed in. He's making stim upgrade, getting medics as well, scouting the entirety of his base, both of his corners, just to make sure that there are no pylons in his base, no cannons being rushed. Just wants to make sure he's safe. As if he's going to find Larva. Marine is not going to find Larva. There he goes. He sees what's up and coming. 2 more robo. Wait. 1 more robo being added on. Cannon being added on as well. This Zealot is doing the same thing that Marine was doing just earlier. Checking the corners to make sure that there's no barracks there. That is going to sneak in some cheeky fire bats to kill the probes. This is also why he's making this cannon here. So he's going with 3 gas, which is quite greedy, but he's also adding on a cybernetics, robotics. This is the cybernetics, this is the robotics, this is robotics as well. Support bay, more specifically. Yeah, this is just there to keep Hamburgersasu boxed in. Hamburgersasu is of course going to try to push out with this, and he's going to run into those cannons and lose a couple of those Marines, which might set up a successful Reaver shuttle micro attempt from Larva if those fire bats and Marines wind up dying, purely because Hamburgersasu will have a smaller amount of units to defend himself with, which is of course always in favor of the Protoss. It's not always worth it to try and brute force your way through those cannons and zealots. And knowing Hamburgersasu, he's definitely going to try, because he has not added on a command center to boost up his economy. And that's pretty much a huge telltale sign that he's planning on going aggressive. 2 Reavers are on the way, very close to finishing up. Shuttle speed also on the way for easier shuttle micro. Goes in for the attack here in the front. Looks like he might actually come out on top here because he kills all those zealots and the cannons really easily, really quickly. Those fire bats there in the front, they die to 3 cannon shots instead of 2. So the Marines in the back pretty much untouched, and mostly the fire bats sacrificing their life. Panel being made there on the side. Shuttle is en route, but it turns around. He's trying to decide, do I defend? Do I attack? He isn't sure, but he goes for the attack anyway because he's got 2 Reavers here on the way, and he's making cannons around his nexus as well. Templar Starcraft also on the way, and Hamburgersasu is not going in yet, but here comes the Reaver. Reaver lands on the low ground. Reaver gets a shot off on the... He kills a couple of Marines. 1 Reaver goes down. Hamburgersasu splits up his Marines very smartly and takes down the shuttle, so that one got nipped in the bud. Great micro, great split there from Hamburgersasu. Larva could have ended Hamburgersasu's career right there if he managed to go in all the way here, but it was not meant to be. So he pulls back because he scouted this base, those Reavers and those cannons with that 1 Marine he sent in, and goes to clear out this middle section first. I'm curious to see what he's going to do with this. He might go for robos here on the side, go for gateways, try and go for a sneak in from behind. Depot there at the minerals to facilitate an SCV storm dodge. And yeah, there, +1 command center there at the bottom. Hamburgersasu is now deciding to go defensive for now, because there's no option to go offensive. Because Reaver Shuttle Micro is honestly, seriously, super deadly against Marines. It can completely shut down a 20 or 30 Marine push with a tank. All you need is 2 Reavers and some sick lead micro skills, which Larva definitely does have. So yeah, he's filling out his base with some gateways. He's got some pretty nice SimCity, so he's got that going as well. Reaver here in the front, hammering away on those depots and those bunkers and those Marines. Some really, really sweet micro. And decides to pull back after that hit and run. Hamburgersasu got a little bit of a jump scare, but not too serious. Not too serious. He's making 2 starports, 3 starports, producing tanks from a single factory. He's sending his SCVs there into the middle. Oh, he catches the shuttle just in time, unloads the Reaver. Reaver gets shot off. Marines get split up. Both shuttles go down. Now both Reavers go down. And now the raids are chasing the shuttle, but he decides to discontinue that chase because there might be more shuttles coming in. So one thing Larva does have is the sense that he has to go and kill those SCVs. He has to do something with those Reavers. He at least knows that much. But Hamburgersasu was just in time with everything and did everything correctly, and now he's going to on the hunt, doing some recon with those raids, splits them up, tries to get vision of every single little thing, throws down a scan here so he can see the shuttles. Shuttles get pulled to safety because Larva knows. Once he saw the shuttle, he immediately knew what Hamburgersasu was up to. That's really good game sense. That's really good game sense because he knows that those shuttles dying would slow him down so much and give Hamburgersasu so much time to scale up, get big, and pretty much go for a kill attack somewhere at around the 11 or 12 minute mark, which is inching closer bit by bit as time goes on. So that's 4 Templars, 2 Reavers, 2 Dragoons. This is going to be interesting. I really like the way he picked up those Dragoons. Seemed so effortless, but it's honestly not that easy to do. So yeah, raids and turrets and Marines are in between the shuttles and their destination. Larva manages to go in, he unloads the single one with the Templars died, it seems. 1 Reaver already goes down, but a lot of Marines got cleaned out there, so now he's going to use the raids to kill that Reaver, kills a couple more Marines, and no SCVs go down, just Marines, and of course a turret here as well. The Hamburgersasu handles this drop attempt from Larva just splendidly. In the meantime, Larva added on 2 Nexi to boost up his economy. He's mining from pretty much all the gas he needs, but there comes a tank drop here from Hamburgersasu. Hamburgersasu aiming for the probes. He kills. I didn't see it, but he killed. Well, Larva went from 58 down to 53. So we can deduce he lost about 4 or 5. So it was very close, but not quite. Not quite. Close, but no cigar. Larva's still in the process of very slowly scaling up and getting bigger. He is assuming he lost a lot more of his probes than he in fact did. So he pulled all of his probes off his gas. He's going to put more probes back on his gas soon. Now the raids are coming in. He's scanning for those shuttles. He's seeing the shuttles. Larva is not responding because he didn't hear the sound or didn't see the animation. And he goes in for the shuttles. There goes 1 shuttle. There goes 2 shuttle. There goes 3. And there goes number 4. And the drop attempt has been shut down. Hurgasu pulls back to his own base. And Larva is saying, oh darn it. I should have paid better attention. Now the game is becoming significantly harder for Larva. He has to start filling out his base ASAP, get bigger, get everything rolling, or he's going to be ran over very soon. Very soon. 2 or 3 minutes away. Because Hamburgersasu is really just taking his time. He's even making 2 more command centers. Hasn't really added on a lot of depots here on the bottom side. Mostly just command centers. He is pretty much almost maxed out though. Most of the depots are here in the front. Yeah, Marines spread out really well. Very low factory count because he doesn't need that many tanks. He just needs a lot of raids. He might even be going for a wraith bomb on the Nexus. Is that what he's up to? In that case, I would be expecting a science facility, which we're seeing right here, and an EMP upgrade very soon, which we might also be seeing very soon. Larva goes into the middle, spreads his units out really, really nice. And he pulls back to his own base. He pulls back to his own base. He goes into the middle and he pulls back. Look cute. I guess he was hunting for some units, but he finds nothing. Building a bunch of panels there in the top corner because he needs supply space. It's kind of what happens when you're not used to the SimCity off the fastest map. He's got Arbiter on the way. He's got the Arbiter Tribunal finished up. He's got every single upgrade for ground on the way as well. He's already on 111. Whereas Hamburgersasu is on 01 and 0. Although the armories are now all finishing up. All 4 of them. So we can get all 4 tank and air upgrades at the same time. Well, mech and air is the correct way of saying it. Mech and air. So yeah, once again he moves out. Gateway count still very low. Mostly just going for his tech. Oh, let's hide that one. So I assume these are carriers. So he's going for carriers. Does he have upgrades for carriers on the way? He does have armor and weapon on the way. Though his Stargate count is really low. But he's spending his minerals really well. Whether on the right things, I don't know. He hasn't really been able to land any punches. He's been throwing punches. But they've mostly been wide swings. Hamburgersasu has managed to dodge with great finesse. So he lifted up the barracks, spreading them out over the map for vision, and tries to go hunting with the raids, but nothing is coming. Larva again moving in and out of his base, into the middle, searching for something, waiting for Hamburgersasu to move out so he can go for the kill. He does not have zealot speed yet. That's not what I expected. Wait, is this zealot speed? This is not zealot speed. I'm confused. Anyway, he's got carrier capacity on the way. Actually, he's got every single upgrade there is on the way. Every single one of them. So carrier capacity, reaver, scarab damage, legs, weapons for ground, shields, air armor, air weapons, ground shields, ground armor, everything. Observer speed as well. Hamburgersasu likewise doing the same. Even got the EMP on the way. He has the vessel on the way as well. Tanks are now moving out. He cleared out all the depots there in the front, the bunkers as well. He's planning on moving out. Larva is still moving back and forth, filling out his base slowly but surely. And he's getting more gateways this time. But you are kind of seeing that he doesn't really know how to SimCity the most efficiently on fastest. But that might come out to bite him in the ass, because the gateway count is not that high. Neither is the Stargate count. So yeah, fight happening here on the middle. Larva gets a pretty good spread and surround on those units. But it looks like, I want to say Hamburgersasu comes out on top, but that's a lot of Templars, a lot of storms that might just change the pace and change the fate of this fight. Here come the storms. Dragoons are gonna wind up coming out on top. Still only a single tank left. A lot of tanks are now in production for Hamburgersasu. Larva played that fight really well. A lot of very good storms and a really good spread on those Dragoons and Zealots. Nets up winning in the fight. More units on the way here for Hamburgersasu. Also tanks up on the hill, ready to make life hard for Larva. Also, this one is just flying into its death. Or is it? Unless... yeah, so Larva is mass scanning on the middle. Smart move, because that's going to keep Hamburgersasu boxed in. Hamburgersasu is playing this a little bit slow, but he wants to be safe and sure. Tanks up on the hill, tanks immediately get stormed by those Templars, and the tanks both go down. So no cheeky tanks up on the hill for Hamburgersasu. Now Hamburgersasu moves out with his Goliaths and his tanks, preparing himself to shut this middle section down. But Larva is not planning on letting it happen, sends out his Dragoons and his Zealots into the fight, gets on top of the tanks, and the storms come down as well, but the number of Goliaths and tanks is simply too high. Larva is gonna bite the dust with this fight in particular, gets forced back, pulls back, makes a lot more cannons on the middle there as well. More carriers are still on the way, already 6 of them have finished, 4 more are on the way. Arbiter also finished, 1 more carrier there on the way as well. And a lot of gateway units on the way as well. And the upgrades, of course, are still being processed. Got level 1 armor, 2 shields, and 2 air weapon. Like as far as ground, he's on 223, so his upgrades are pretty far ahead over Hamburgersasu, and the storms are doing a lot of work here as well. Now the carriers are coming in, the Goliath count is pretty low, EMP didn't come down on those carriers. So the vessel went down before he could EMP, and now Larva is winning the mid-fight with those carriers. But he doesn't have an observer, he does have cannons there to detect. I think Hamburgersasu managed to snipe one of those carriers. Nope, he didn't snipe any of those. He sniped the Arbiter. That's what he sniped. But the fact that there was no observer there really made those raids really strong. Now an observer is there in the mix. He's already taken down a single one of the carriers. Now goes for number 2. The Basu goes down there as well. Goliaths assisting the raids in taking them down, but the raids eventually do wind up dying in the process of taking down those 2 carriers. There's now how many observers? 3 observers. Dragoons under the carriers. This is a really good push here from Larva. Even though his SimCity is not fastest map style, he's doing exactly what he needs to. Doing what you have to do is more important than a bad SimCity. Although his SimCity does allow for ease of access all around his base. It's just that the number of buildings in his base is very low. So reproduction of a mass is kind of difficult. But this carrier micro though, look at that go. Carriers weaving in and out, taking down those Goliaths one by one, and then hoeing back onto the hill where they become untargetable. Let me just display it. Like this. Oh, actually he does have raids on the hill now. And he also sniped the observers, which now means those carriers are gonna have to run for their lives. Oh no, never mind. I still see the animation of the observers there. But he winds up winning the fight there quite massively. Great switch up there from Hamburgersasu with Goliath and the raids. The raids, of course, giving him vision up on the hill. I wanted to display the fact that carriers turn invisible once they move up on the hill, unless the Terran has vision up on the hill, which has to be either a vessel, raids, Valkyries, or of course a scan. And this time he used raids and the scan to get vision up on the hill. So yeah, more carriers are on the way once again, but they can only make 5 at a time, and that's because his Stargate count is so low. So he's forced to rely mostly on those gateway units, those Templars, those Zealots, those Dragoons, and spread them out really nicely. If he cannot get Great Storms off, this might just be the start of the end for Larva. The Storms are great. The Storms are really good. Really good Storms there, actually. Kills a bunch of that. Slows Hamburgersasu down significantly, but Hamburgersasu is going all out Super Saiyan mode. He's going beyond. Plus Ultra. Hitting that 400 APM there with the mass micro production there as well. And both players are hitting, well, critical mass. This is smart here from Larva, making Carrier Expo here on the top side of the middle. A section that Hamburgersasu is probably never going to find, because his interest is going straight over the middle of this portion, straight into Larva's base. But Larva, once again, on the pushback here with those carriers. Not a lot of carriers, 6, but it's just enough to push Hamburgersasu back, because the combination is ground forces with carriers, and carriers on top of ground forces is really annoying, because the Goliaths don't really know what to focus on. If they focus on the interceptors, they get attacked by the ground forces. That's why those tanks are so crucial, because they have to take down the ground forces. It's just a very annoying task to mix the unit combination in such a way that you have enough tanks, enough Goliaths, enough raids. And yeah, the raids there doing a miracle, taking down those carriers so quick and easy, despite the detection. Goliaths, of course, assisting. Observer now sculling the way out of there. And Hamburgersasu scans the top spots here to look for an expo of gateways or carriers. It's here, not on one of those spots. But Hamburgersasu is already knocking on Larva's front door. Can Larva hold out a little bit longer, or is this going to be the end? Hamburgersasu wants to come in, busting down the front door. And Larva doesn't have a lot of carriers. He's got 3 carriers, he's got some ground forces there as well. Now the raids are coming in to take down those carriers. But there's cannons there on the sides, vessels flying into their sure deaths, by accident of course. See, the push is going pretty well. He goes for the Arbiter first, but he does wind up losing the raids in the process of killing the Arbiter. Carriers though lost all their interceptors to the Goliaths. The carrier count is so low, so they're not as effective as they could be. And it looks like Hamburgersasu spotted this carrier proxy here on the top, which he's now taking down. All the carriers there get cancelled. Now he's making a new one, a new expo, a new proxy, but this is all gateways. So he wants to switch over to gateway units and hit Hamburgersasu from behind. But will he have enough time? That is the question, because more units are coming in from Hamburgersasu's base and streaming into Larva's choke. Carriers are spawning, but carriers take some time to make their interceptors. It's a very slow, diminished gratification process. It's gonna take at least a minute. I need a drink. Yeah, so great starter step micro here from Hamburgersasu as he inches closer to those carriers, taking down those ground forces. Now the raids are coming in there as well. Larva forced to pull back his carriers to the cannons where the raids cannot fight. Dark Templars now in the mix. The scan is going to come down soon from Hamburgersasu to take care of those Dark Templars. Or is he not noticing that there comes the scan? Dark Templars going down. Hamburgersasu microing his tanks in deeper and deeper. Carriers unprotected by cannons. Carriers getting taken down, shut down very rapidly. Will this expo have enough units out quick? Oh, Larva. Larva calls it GG. 24 minutes in. And that's a done deal here. Hamburgersasu takes home game number 4. Yeah, game number 4 goes to Hamburgersasu. He wins this one quite convincingly. Larva did a very good job with his limited Vastus map knowledge. But the fact that Protoss versus Terran is so very specifically different from normal maps, you could see that he wanted to do stuff, but he didn't really know how to do it. And his gateway and Stargate count was simply too low to keep up with Hamburgersasu's very optimized SimCity. Because if you compare this to the somewhat disappeared base from Larva, the production capability of both players is just vastly different. And that's honestly crucial in Fastest Map. A good SimCity that maximizes the means of production, you gotta seize it and use it. So that's game number 4. And I'm gonna check if game number 5 is long or short, because I'm gonna cast that one as well. Well, there's a couple more games in this series, and they're not that short. So I'm going to turn this into a 2-part series where I will mark the end of this video right about here, and then we'll do part number 2 tomorrow. So we will see the conclusion of Hamburgersasu against Larva tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you find it amusing to see Larva play some of that Fastest Map that he isn't used to, but regardless, still fun to watch. So thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.